This week on Jerusalem Dateline, the U.S. and Iran seem on the brink of war. And while tension between Iran and the U.S. continues, some wonder if Israel could be drawn into the conflict.
If the Iranians order Hezbollah to attack Israel, they will be met with a very firm and strong and a painful response by the IDF.
Plus, an alarming report on the growth of anti-Semitism in Germany. And a look at Christian leaders from around the world coming here for a Jerusalem encounter. All this and more this week on Jerusalem Dateline. Hello and welcome to this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. I'm Chris Mitchell. We begin with escalating tensions with Iran. Sources say President Donald Trump approved retaliatory airstrikes against Iran for shooting down a U.S. surveillance drone. But then he called them off. Mark Martin has the story.
With planes in the air and ships in position, President Trump called off the strike targeting radar and missile sites. It's not clear if the president stopped the attacks because he changed his mind or due to logistical and strategic reasons. All this in response to Iran's downing of a U.S. surveillance drone.
They made a very big mistake.
Iranian officials say the drone, similar to this one, was hovering in their airspace when they used surface-to-air missiles to shoot it down. But during a Pentagon briefing, the head of the U.S. Air Force Central Command said that's not true.
This was an unprovoked attack on a U.S. surveillance asset that had not violated Iranian airspace at any time during its mission. This attack is an attempt to disrupt our ability to monitor the area following recent threats to international shipping and the free flow of commerce.
Iran's ambassador to the UN tells NPR it tried to contact the drone, but, quote, since it was a spy drone, we were left with no other option. U.S. military leaders say the drone was over the Strait of Hormuz in international airspace. The shootdown follows a string of incidents in recent weeks, including attacks on 6 commercial ships in the region, Iran suspected in all of them. Word that Iranian proxies were loading missiles onto boats within range of U.S. naval assets and other threats, all in response to U.S.-led sanctions against Iran after the U.S. pulled out of the Iran nuclear deal. Lawmakers are split on what the next move should be. Some urge caution, others just the opposite.
We're worried that he and the administration may bumble into a war.
The only way Iran changes its behavior is if they believe America will put options on the table that would create pain for the regime.
Iran did claim responsibility for shooting down the U.S. drone. The head of the Revolutionary Guard saying the Islamic regime doesn't want armed conflict, but it's ready for war. Meanwhile, the FAA has stopped U.S. commercial air traffic from flying over Iran because of safety concerns. That affects flights over the Persian Gulf and Gulf of Oman. The ban is in effect until further notice. Mark Martin, CBN News.
During a meeting with the New England Patriots U.S. football team, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu called on peace-loving nations to stand with the United States.
In the last 24 hours, Iran has intensified its aggression against the United States and against all of us. And I repeat my call for all peace-loving countries to stand by the United States in its effort to stop Iranian aggression. Israel stands by the United States on this.
With talk of possible U.S. military action against Iran, there are questions about whether Israel might be dragged into any regional conflict. That's because Hezbollah in Lebanon gets its money and marching orders from Iran. Take a look. Looking at these peaceful hills, it's hard to imagine a well-armed enemy is hidden and possibly waiting to strike.
The fact that Hezbollah is involved in every aspect of life of the people in those towns on the other side of the border enables it to deploy such a huge and massive military infrastructure in South Lebanon.
We're standing on the Israeli-Lebanese border. Just on the other side, you can see the yellow Hezbollah flags flying. The IDF estimates that Hezbollah has hidden well over 100,000 rockets in these towns and villages in southern Lebanon.
All of them comfortably hidden behind Lebanese civilians inside Lebanon, all of them aimed at our civilians.
IDF spokesman Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan Conriquez says that plays into Hezbollah's hands.
And the aim of Hezbollah is to be able to have those rockets, fire them at Iranian orders at our civilians, and then once we retaliate, which we will be forced to do, that would cause collateral damage, and they would then try to use that for their advantage.
During fighting in 2006, Hezbollah launched some 4,000 rockets at northern Israeli cities. Now, most of Israel is in range of its rockets.
Hezbollah is still more armed than many European armies today. They have still lots of money, lots of loyal operators, and experience and know-how, and most importantly, hostile intention towards Israel.
And it's financed by Iran.
Iranian money has facilitated this, as well as many other hostile, aggressive endeavors that Hezbollah has, whether it is the vast rocket arsenal that Hezbollah has, whether it is their current project by which they are trying to convert rockets into accurate missiles, or the tunnel project.
CBN News recently got a rare look inside the sixth and largest tunnel Israel has uncovered along its border with Lebanon. You're looking at the equivalent of a 22-story building underground. Had it not been discovered, hundreds of armed Hezbollah fighters could have filled the tunnel, waiting to attack, kidnap, and kill Israelis. I'm standing at Zarit, the closest Israeli community to the Lebanese border, just behind me. It demonstrates the danger this Hezbollah terror tunnel posed to the people of northern Israel. Iranian President Hassan Rouhani said his country isn't looking for a fight.
We do not wage war with any nation. Our opponents are a bunch of inexperienced politicians.
But Reserve Lieutenant Colonel Sarit Zahavi says there's always a possibility of war.
Especially when you have on the other side someone who doesn't acknowledge Israel's right to exist. I think it is also depend on how much pressure will be put on Iran and Hezbollah. It depends, like Nasrallah himself said, the leader of Hezbollah said that if there will be war between Iran and the United States, Israel and Saudi Arabia will be attacked.
So will there be a war with Hezbollah?
We sure aren't looking for one. But at the end of the day, if the Iranians order Hezbollah to attack Israel, they will be met with a very firm and strong and a painful response by the IDF, one that definitely is not in the interest of Hezbollah, the Iranians, and most definitely not the state of Lebanon and their civilians.
For now, Israel and the rest of the Middle East wait to see whether U.S.-Iranian tensions grow or dissipate. The U.S. and Israel both see Iran as the major threat in the region. It's one factor that's helped create the current close relationship between U.S. President Donald Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. That relationship reached a new high with the dedication of a Golan Heights settlement named after President Trump. Here's CBN News Middle East correspondent Julie Stahl.
The new community will be called Ramat Trump, Hebrew for Trump Heights. Currently known as Bruchim, the community only has a population of 10. Israel hopes the new name might encourage a new wave of residents.
President Trump is a very great friend of our country, a leader who did things that had not been done before and had to be done for justice and truth.
Prime Minister Netanyahu held a special cabinet meeting and ceremony on the Golan Heights.
Here, there's a realization of the Zionist vision at its best. The building of the land of Israel is the foundation of our national life, and the Golan was and will be an inseparable part of our land and our country. The Golan is Israeli.
U.S. Ambassador to Israel David Friedman talked about the importance of President Trump's decision to recognize Israeli sovereignty over this area.
Anyone who ever has visited the Golan Heights and received the tours, especially the tours from the IDF, but almost any tour, causes you to know immediately, without requiring any great insider wisdom, that this is incredibly important territory for the State of Israel. Few things are more important to the security of the State of Israel than permanent sovereignty over the Golan Heights. It is simply obvious, it is indisputable, it's beyond any reasonable debate.
Israel captured the Golan Heights from Syria in the 1967 Six-Day War and annexed it in 1981. No country recognized it until President Trump.
I think it's a dramatic statement. It's unbelievable.
Former IDF commander Kobi Marom now lives on the Golan Heights.
It's not a symbolic thing. It's a significant declaration because it came from the strongest and the most important Israeli allies, United States, President Trump.
Resident Adam Eliyahu Berkowitz says while it doesn't change his daily life, it will lead to a big payoff.
It was a brilliant move, and I think it's bringing us closer to peace than anything I've ever seen before.
About 50,000 people currently live in this area, half Israeli Jews and half Druze. Marom said the biggest challenge going forward is making it possible for Israelis to live here.
We have to bring 100,000 Israelis to the Golan Heights in the next 10 years. That's the challenge. I think a lot of young families will love to live in this beautiful area. They need jobs, they need infrastructure.
And they hope Ramat Trump will be just the beginning. Julie Stahl, CBN News.
Up next, anti-Semitism on the rise in Germany.
And me, myself, I wouldn't wear a kippah. Unfortunately, it's not safe.
An alarming report when we come back. The world just celebrated the 75th anniversary of the D-Day landings. But in the lifetime of those who survived the Second World War, anti-Semitism is again a threat to Jews in Germany. Dale Hurd has the story from Berlin.
This isn't the Middle East, it's Germany, where Muslims now outnumber Jews 50-1, and where for the first time since the Nazi regime, Jewish leaders are warning that it's too dangerous to wear the kippah or Jewish cap in some areas.
And me, myself, I wouldn't wear a kippah. Unfortunately, it's not safe. Maybe I hope that it will be safe in future, or maybe it was safe in the past, but right now, in 2019, no, it is not safe at all, unfortunately.
A magazine even printed a paper kippah for all Germans to wear, to show solidarity with Jews. The German government and media say the threat to Jews comes equally from the far right and from Muslim immigrants. And while there is a dangerous neo-Nazi movement in Germany that hates Jews, Chancellor Angela Merkel's welcome of more than 1 million Muslims from countries with anti-Semitic cultures has caused some Jews to join the so-called far right for protection. This is Germany's third largest political party, AfD, or Alternative for Germany, which the left-dominated German media brands as Nazi, although its platform looks a lot like the Republican Party in America. It has shown stronger support for Israel than any other major German party, and now has a chapter called Jews in the AfD. At their first meeting, members sang Ose Shalom. So why would Jews join a so-called Nazi party? Maybe they don't think it's Nazi. Or maybe they think they face a more serious threat. The German media treats Jews in the AfD as a publicity stunt. Jewish groups have warned that AfD is no friend of the Jews. The founder of the group, Bernhard Krauskopf, has been denounced as a Jewish Nazi.
Look, when the media tells you that the AfD is a Nazi party, and when the media looks for some Nazis, which we have, like all the parties in Germany, this is nothing special about the AfD. The left consists of Jew haters. Not all of them, but the majority of them. Yes, we have some of those people. We try to get rid of them. It's not so easy because we have free speech.
But AfD leaders have said some disturbing things. Bjorn Höcke called Berlin's Holocaust Memorial a memorial of disgrace and said Germans should stop feeling guilty. Alexander Gauland said that Hitler and the Nazis are just a speck of bird poop in over 1,000 years of successful German history. Krauskopf says he doesn't like those comments, but he says what Angela Merkel has done to make Germany unsafe for Jews is far worse.
To import Jew haters into Germany while knowing it is an anti-Jewish act. That's not just, some memorial. This is reducing our security in Germany by the Chancellor of Germany herself.
There were never a lot of Jews in Germany. Even before the Nazis, Jews were less than 1% of the population. And almost 75 years after the defeat of the Nazis, Jews in Germany still only number about 115,000. And they're feeling increasingly outnumbered and in danger because of Muslim immigration, which Krauskopf says is far worse than the German government will admit.
They are playing it on. They are lying. They are no other word. They are lying about it. So there are lots of excuses, and the situation gets worse every day because the government has lost control. Jewish have been imported. You know these actuators. So now you have no excuses like the normal excuse was after World War II. Yeah, but we didn't know that this would happen. We didn't know. You know it now.
Dale Hurd, CBN News, Berlin.
Coming up, a Jerusalem conference brings Christian leaders from around the world for an encounter. One organization here in Israel connects Christian leaders around the world with local believers. Here's a look at why, for visitors and locals, it's a unique encounter. It's called the Jerusalem Encounter, and it's a ministry of FIRM, the Fellowship of Israel-Related Ministries.
Jerusalem Encounter is a conference that's held every June. We invite the world to come and meet the body of believers here in this land, of believers, Jews and Arabs together, in a remarkable unity and peace, building up the kingdom of God here in the land of Israel.
Local leaders appreciate the opportunity.
Actually, it's almost priceless. Anytime you want to get some networking done, you're getting people from overseas who have absolutely no opportunity to know who the pastors are or mission agencies or workers or the body of the Messiah inside Israel. They all get together. It's an incredible networking opportunity.
All of these people that come in here, they're coming also for one purpose, right? Is to, first of all, bless the land, but also stand alongside the rest of the ministries in the land here. And many people that would come here would come only maybe for tourism, and sometimes they miss connecting really with the body, what the kingdom is like here in the land of Israel among the Arab and the Jew. So that makes a great platform for exposure for many ministries to connect with the believers, pray together, and support each other and stand together for what God has for this land.
For those coming from the nations, the experience can be life-changing.
More than anything, just being here has changed my life. It has taken my faith from black and white to color. It has just renewed my zeal for the Jewish people.
Hilsden believes it's a unique time in biblical history.
We get testimonies from especially pastors from around the world who are surprised to discover a growing, living body of believers here. So the shock is, wow, the Lord is working in a fresh and new way, probably in a way greater than anything we've seen in the past 1900 years. Even since the book of Acts, we're seeing, I believe, an awakening of revelation of the Messiah to his people here in this land.
Up next, life can be tough for Holocaust survivors as they age. See how Operation Blessing is helping. Life can be tough when you're in your 90s, and sometimes the things we take for granted can cause the most trouble. Take a look at how CBN's Operation Blessing helped one Holocaust survivor with one of those needs.
Hava is a 94-year-old widow and Holocaust survivor. She was one of the last Hungarian Jews to be put on a train for Auschwitz.
The train car was very crowded and uncomfortable, but there was no fear. We heard rumors of what was happening to the Jews in Poland, but we didn't believe them. My mind could not comprehend what was about to happen.
In Auschwitz, the women were split into two lines. Hava was selected to go to a labor camp, while the rest of her family members were marched off to the gas chambers.
For the longest time, I didn't really understand what had happened to them. Even after the war, I held hope that I would see them again. but they died in Auschwitz.
Hava told me by the end of the war, Nazi operations were moving so fast they weren't even bothering to tattoo numbers on prisoners. She was forced to work in a textile factory until the Russians liberated the camp in 1945. Miraculously, Hava's husband survived the war and they reunited. Later, they moved to Jerusalem where they raised their children.
I was the only survivor for my family, and this tormented me. But my husband and I knew we couldn't cry over the dead, but must rejoice for the living.
Hava said rejoicing can be difficult, not just because she's in her 90s, but because she's been wearing the same dentures for 20 years. They should have been replaced about 13 years ago.
They caused me a lot of pain, and I couldn't eat in front of people without my teeth. So they limited me socially. New dentures are very expensive, and I just didn't have the money. I felt handicapped.
So Operation Blessing paid for Hava to get brand new dentures. We also paid for the follow-up visits to get them fitting perfectly and comfortably. Finally, we gave Hava a special gift basket so she'd have something tasty to enjoy with her new teeth.
You have all been so lovely to me. With my old dentures, I couldn't say Mazel Tov because I couldn't form the words. But now I can say it freely without worrying about my dentures falling out. It's made me so happy.
Thanks to Operation Blessing, Hava has what she needs to enjoy life to the fullest.
It's unbelievable knowing there are people in the world, non-Jews, who saw our suffering and opened their hearts to us. You choose to do something to help make our lives better, and I'm so grateful for that. I thank God for you.
Well, that's all for this edition. Please remember to pray for the situation in the Middle East and for leaders here in the region and for President Trump in Washington, D.C., as decisions about war and peace are being weighed in the balance. Well, thanks for joining us. Remember, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. I'm Chris Mitchell. We'll see you next time on Jerusalem Dateline.